I did not have a dramatic wake-up call. There was no viral headline or shocking statistic. It was smaller than that. It happened the day a drive-through receipt matched what I used to pay for a relaxed sit-down lunch, and I still left hungry. Then, a week later, a movie ticket cost more than an entire month of streaming used to, for a single chair and a handful of trailers. That is when something clicked. Not emotionally, logically. At some point, convenience stopped being a shortcut and quietly became a premium product. No announcement, no warning label, just higher prices, thinner portions, extra fees, and the same promise of ease. And because life is busy, most of us did not question it. We adjusted, we paid, we moved on, and then we wondered why money felt tighter even though nothing big had changed. This is not an anti-fun argument. It is not about cutting joy or living like a monk. It is about results, about measuring what we give versus what we actually get back. Because when the numbers stop making sense, discipline is not the solution, clarity is. The real problem is not spending. It is paying more for less while being told it is normal. Prices rose faster than perceived value, while portions shrank, perks disappeared, and service thinned out. Fees multiplied in the background while our attention stayed locked on the headline price. And when satisfaction dropped, the blame quietly shifted to us for wanting too much. That is a clever trick. What follows in this series is not a list of things you are not allowed to enjoy. It is a map, a way to spot patterns before they drain your wallet without delivering real utility, health, or lasting memories. Once you see the pattern, it becomes hard to unsee, and that is a good thing. Because money's real job is simple: reduce stress and increase options. Not status, not speed, not noise. Options. And when spending aligns with that purpose, life gets calmer fast. Most people assume their problem is willpower, that if they were just more disciplined, things would balance out. But discipline did not suddenly get weaker across an entire population. The environment changed. Quietly. Systematically. The gap you feel is not imaginary. Prices did not just rise, they rose while value thinned out. Packages got smaller. Features disappeared. Service slowed down. And layers of fees were added in places that used to be simple. Delivery fees, service charges, convenience markups, optional tips that do not feel optional. A $12 purchase casually turns into $20. And because the jump happens in stages, the brain barely registers it. This is where perception breaks. We remember what something used to cost, but we normalize what it costs now because everyone around us is paying it too. That normalization is powerful. It makes bad deals feel standard instead of questionable. There is also adaptation at work. Humans adjust fast. An upgrade feels exciting for a short window, then becomes the new normal. The happiness spike fades, but the higher price stays. So we chase the next tier, thinking that will feel different. It rarely does. This is not a personal flaw. It is basic psychology. Another layer is expectation creep. Yesterday's treat quietly becomes today's routine. What was once occasional becomes automatic. And automatic spending is the most expensive kind because it runs without conscious approval. Add social comparison and the picture gets worse. The reference point shifts. What feels normal is no longer based on your income or priorities, but on a filtered feed and a louder lifestyle. The budget stays the same. The bar moves up. Then comes the sunk cost trap. Once time or money is invested, we keep going to avoid admitting it was a weak trade. So we pay again, hoping the next round will finally feel worth it. None of this is accidental. Many modern categories rely on these pressures to stay profitable. They are not selling value. They are selling momentum. That is why cutting randomly feels painful and ineffective. The goal is not to say no more often. It is to stop saying yes by default. Before changing habits, you need a filter that works even when you are tired, busy, or rushed. Not motivation, not guilt. A simple mechanism that makes unfair trades obvious. That mechanism comes next. Willpower sounds heroic, but it is unreliable. It runs out by evening. It disappears when stress shows up. That is why depending on discipline alone fails long term. The smarter move is to remove emotion from the decision as early as possible. The filter I use is boring, which is why it works. First, calculate the real cost of enjoyment. Not the sticker price, the full number. That means the price, taxes, mandatory add-ons, service charges, and fees, everything it takes to walk away with the experience or item. Then subtract what you could realistically recover later through resale. Not the fantasy number, the number you would accept if you actually had to sell it. Now divide that by how many hours of use or enjoyment you will honestly get. Not best case. Pessimistic on purpose. This gives you a cost per hour that exposes whether something is a fair trade or just well marketed. A $150 item used 150 times is a better deal than a $15 item used once. The brain struggles to see that without math. Math does not struggle. Then comes the second pass, which I call the stamina check. Ask a simple question. Will the quality hold up for the time period I am paying for? A low cost per use is meaningless if the thing breaks early, underperforms, or becomes annoying. Cheap that fails fast is not cheap. It is a subscription in disguise. There is also a pause built into this system. Before buying, say 2 sentences out loud or in your head. 1. What does this cost per use or per hour? 2. What does this replace? That second question is critical. Every dollar already has a job. If you do not assign it, it will get assigned for you. When you run this filter for a normal week, the results are surprising. The obvious swaps do not feel like sacrifice. They feel like relief. Spending drops in places that were never delivering and stays in the few areas that actually matter. The short-term win is cash flow, money left over at the end of the month. The long-term win is confidence. Bills stop feeling like landmines. Choices feel deliberate instead of reactive. This is not about optimizing every penny. It is about removing bad defaults so good decisions can happen automatically. Once the filter is clear, certain categories start failing instantly. They look fine on the surface, but collapse under basic math. Fast food used to solve a clear problem. It was predictable, filling, and inexpensive. You traded nutrition and atmosphere for speed and price, and the deal made sense. That trade no longer holds. In many places, a basic combo now sits comfortably in the double digits before tax. Add a second person, maybe a shared extra, and the total lands where a casual cafe meal used to live. The price moved, but the portion did not. The quality stayed inconsistent. The result is paying more and feeling less satisfied, which is the worst possible outcome. This is not indulgence. It is friction disguised as convenience. Food delivery made the gap worse. Service fees, delivery fees, and tips stack on top of inflated menu prices. Because each fee looks small on its own, the brain underestimates the total. A meal that starts at 12 quietly exits at 20. Multiply that by a few times a week, and you have replaced a utility bill without noticing. The math exposes it fast. A meal that delivers 40 minutes of enjoyment at $20 costs $30 per hour. A simple home-cooked alternative at $6 delivers the same time and often more leftovers, dropping the cost per hour dramatically. The difference is not effort. It is planning. The fix is not perfection. It is preparation. A few fast, high-flavor meals that live in your fridge or freezer eliminate the 6 p.m. decision trap. Rotisserie chicken, bagged greens, eggs, frozen rice, and sauces turn into real food faster than most drive-through lines. Leftovers become tomorrow's lunch instead of tomorrow's problem. Food trucks follow the same arc. What began as affordable novelty often charges premium prices for handheld meals and nowhere to sit. If one is truly exceptional, enjoy it intentionally. Just do not let novelty become baseline. Convenience is still allowed. It just has to win the math. When it does not, the disappointment is planned, even if the branding says otherwise. Once food stops leaking money, Another category starts to stand out just as clearly. Movie theaters used to sell escape. You paid for a shared moment, a big screen, and the feeling that something special was happening. Today, many of them sell friction. Ads before the film, upsells at every step, seat tiers that turn sitting into a pricing strategy. By the time the lights dim, the magic has already been diluted. The numbers explain the discomfort. A single ticket often rivals what a full month of home entertainment used to cost. Add snacks, and a casual night out quietly becomes a premium event. The price climbed, but the experience did not evolve at the same pace. In some cases, it regressed. At home, the gap shrank fast. Screens got better. Sound improved. Comfort became free. The effective cost per hour dropped because the equipment gets reused again and again. The marginal cost of another movie night is close to zero. That does not mean theaters are obsolete. It means the bar moved. The question is no longer, do I like movies? It is, when does the big screen actually add value? Spectacle films, comedies that benefit from a crowd, or rare events can still pass the filter. Middling releases often do not. When every visit costs the same as a small dinner, selectivity becomes sanity, not stinginess. There are smarter ways to keep the ritual without the tax. Matinee times. Weekdays. Skipping premium seating that adds price without improving the view. Treating the concession stand like a museum. Interesting to look at. Unnecessary to purchase. Memberships can work if you actually go often enough to lower the per-visit cost. But unused passes are just prepaid regret. At home, restraint matters too. 3 subscriptions lightly used are worse than 1 used deeply. Entertainment should earn attention, not clutter it. The goal is not to stay home forever. It is to reserve outings for nights that feel like occasions instead of obligations. When entertainment becomes intentional again, it stops feeling overpriced. Online education was supposed to level the field. Knowledge without gatekeepers. Skills without massive debt. And for a while, that promise was real. Then marketing got louder than outcomes. Today, many courses are sold like miracles. A polished landing page. A countdown timer. Testimonials that blur context. The price lands in the hundreds, sometimes more, and the pitch suggests you are one purchase away from clarity. What often arrives is familiar content, repackaged basics, vague frameworks, and motivation that fades faster than the refund window. The issue is not learning. It is paying premium prices for information without feedback. Information alone rarely changes behavior. Practice does. Correction does. Accountability does. Those pieces are expensive to deliver, so they are usually missing. The math matters here too. A large upfront fee paid on credit quietly compounds. If the course does not produce action, the cost keeps growing while the value stays flat. That is not education. It is friction with a syllabus. Better alternatives exist. Free libraries of content cover fundamentals in almost every field. Communities, meetups, and peer groups provide context and real-world friction. Short coaching blocks aimed at a single skill can outperform broad programs because the goal is clear and the feedback is immediate. That is an accountability premium, and it can be worth paying. Another trap is hoarding courses as proof of ambition. Buying feels like progress, but progress is measured in output, not enrollment. If a program does not force you to build, ship, or perform, it is entertainment wearing a productivity costume. Before paying, ask 3 questions. What exact skill improves? How will success be measured? Who gives feedback when I get stuck? If those answers are vague, the value probably is too. Learning should create leverage, not guilt. When education spending is a line. Travel is supposed to create distance from daily stress. But some modern options do the opposite. What once felt like a clever alternative slowly absorbed the same pricing, plus new friction. Short-term rentals are the clearest example. A nightly rate looks reasonable until the total updates. Cleaning fees, service fees, taxes. Suddenly, The number bears little resemblance to what you expected. Add a long checkout chore list and strict rules, and the stay starts to feel like unpaid labor. Meanwhile, many hotels adjusted. Mid-range options improved consistency, included basics like breakfast and daily cleaning, and invested in support when things go wrong. When you compare total cost instead of nightly rate, the difference often flips. The filter here is simple: total price, location quality, and reliability. A place that saves money but adds stress is not cheaper. It just charges in a different currency. For groups or long stays, a rental with space and a kitchen can still win. For short trips or busy schedules, predictability matters more than novelty. Another travel drain hides in upgrades. Priority boarding, premium seating, lounge access. Each feels small in isolation. Together, they stack into a second ticket. Sometimes comfort is worth it. Often, it is just insurance against inconvenience created by the same system selling the fix. The goal is not to strip travel of comfort. It is to choose it intentionally. Pay for what reduces friction, not for labels that sound exclusive but change little. Travel should restore energy, not require recovery time. When the logistics feel heavier than the experience, the value equation is broken. There was a time when buying an appliance felt final. You saved, you purchased, and you expected years of service. Today, many products are built for replacement, not longevity. The shift is subtle: thinner components, sealed parts, repairs that cost nearly as much as buying new. None of it is accidental. This is planned short lifespan. When something fails just outside warranty, it nudges you back into the market. From a business standpoint, it works. From a household budget standpoint, it creates a slow leak that is hard to track because it arrives as bad luck instead of a line item. Sticker price hides the real cost. What matters is total cost of ownership: purchase price, expected lifespan, energy use, repair likelihood, and whether parts are available without a fight. A cheaper machine that lasts half as long is not a bargain. It is a subscription with a misleading upfront fee. The math often favors boring, reliable models over flashy ones. Fewer features mean fewer failure points. Strong warranties and common replacement parts matter more than touchscreens and smart connectivity that rarely improve performance. Energy efficiency compounds quietly too. A slightly higher upfront cost can pay itself back through lower monthly bills over time. Extended warranties are another trap. They sound protective, but they are priced to win for the seller, not the buyer. Unless a product has a known failure risk and expensive parts, most extended plans lose the math. Maintenance and careful use usually deliver better returns. This principle applies beyond appliances. Electronics, accessories, and even furniture often chase trends instead of durability. If something is meant to be used daily, reliability beats novelty every time. Buying for lifespan feels slower at checkout. It feels faster over years. Fewer replacements mean fewer decisions, fewer surprises, and less mental clutter. That is value that does not show up on a receipt, but shows up in calmer months. Some purchases are not about function. They are about meaning. Milestones, identity, celebration. There is nothing wrong with that, until the story and the math completely disconnect. Jewelry is a clear example. Retail pricing creates the illusion of permanence and retained value. In reality, resale tells a harsher truth. Once a piece leaves the store, a large portion of the price evaporates. Brand names and markups rarely translate into secondhand demand. What feels like an investment at purchase often behaves like a luxury consumable afterward. The same pattern shows up in designer accessories. Sunglasses, handbags, and luggage frequently charge for logos more than durability. Scratches, loss, and wear erase value fast, while mid-tier alternatives often perform just as well for a fraction of the cost. If something is meant to be used in chaotic environments, airports, crowds, daily commutes, Resilience matters more than prestige. VIP experiences follow the same curve. Higher-priced tiers promise exclusivity but often deliver minor upgrades. A wristband, early entry, a slightly different angle. When the core experience is identical, the premium is paying for a feeling that fades quickly. Sometimes comfort is worth it. Often, the math says no. Status spending hurts most when it crowds out flexibility. Money locked into symbols cannot fund options later. That does not mean eliminating symbolic purchases. It means defining a boundary and making the choice intentional. One meaningful piece, chosen slowly, can beat a stream of impulse upgrades that blur together. If a category fails the resale test and the durability test, it needs a strong emotional reason to stay. Otherwise, it quietly drains future freedom to support a moment that passes. When spending reflects values instead of optics, satisfaction lasts longer, and regret shows up less often. By now, the pattern is clear. Categories that once delivered value now often deliver stress, friction, or disappointment. The upside is that spotting the math makes solutions obvious, not forced. The secret is small, intentional swaps. Start with convenience. Reduce drive-through meals from 4 times a week to 1. Shift movie outings to special occasions instead of weekly habits. Replace oversized or flashy purchases with options that last or can be reused. A small boundary, like one quarterly splurge, keeps life enjoyable without draining cash continuously. Next, total cost awareness. Factor in fees, energy, maintenance, and lifespan. Calculate cost per use or hour. When you do, many cheap items look expensive, and some premium options actually save money long term. That clarity turns impulse into choice. Finally, the mindset shift. Stop trying to optimize every penny. Focus instead on alignment, spending where it truly delivers utility, health, or lasting memories. The goal is not austerity. It is freedom, calm, and confidence. Your account stops feeling like a tug of war, and your brain stops chasing the next tier for fleeting happiness. Over time, these small swaps compound. Freed cash builds an emergency buffer, pays down high-interest debt, or funds investing that grows quietly. The stress fades because spending matches priorities, not ads or social comparisons. You gain options, not just things. The process is simple. Measure honestly, pause before paying, pick swaps that matter, and respect the math. 2 sentences at checkout, repeated consistently, can save hundreds every month. The effect is cumulative, subtle, but undeniable. Money starts serving its true purpose, reducing stress, creating choices, and funding a life that feels intentional instead of reactive. In the end, clarity beats guilt. Alignment beats impulse. And thoughtful spending transforms small, everyday decisions into long-term freedom.